Number 5. Erica Mae Butts and Shanita Latrice Cunningham. Somerville, South Carolina couple Erica Butts and Shanita Cunningham received sentences of life in prison for killing a 3-year-old girl, Serenity Richardson. Serenity had been visiting Erica and Shanita, who were her godmother and mother's best friend, at their home in Somerville. This was where the abuse took place. Both Erica and Shanita beat her with plastic coat hangers and a belt. The only part of her body that wasn't harmed were the soles of her feet. When the two women learned they would be spending the rest of their lives in jail, they both collapsed, wailed, and hyperventilated in the courtroom. The entire scene was incredibly dramatic. Court officials had to pick both women up off the floor, and they were held in chairs before being wheeled out of the room. A clerk was heard asking if any EMTs were present in the building, while others tried to get Erica to slow down her breathing. Erica's mother also had to be thrown out of the courtroom by 3 staff members when she began shouting at her daughter to get up and started screaming that she couldn't leave her baby like this. The mother's cries rang out across the courtroom, trumping the reactions of even the 2 women being sentenced. Number 4. Adrian Dunn. Ex-con Adrian Dunn was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of 24-year-old Raken Tariq Charles. Raken was shot in the back in an apartment complex parking lot during a supposed drug deal. During the closing arguments, prosecutors referred to Adrian's already extensive criminal record. They said he's been to prison twice for possessing a firearm even after the murder of Raken. He had also committed another shooting before the murder and has shown zero remorse. While prosecutor Jason Goss held the hand of Raken's mother, he asked the jury for a life sentence for Adrian's crimes. He said the Charles family had to suffer because of the defendant, but Adrian's lawyer said 34 to 40 years would be more appropriate so that he had a chance of getting out and being an asset to the community. Even if the jury had taken that statement on board, it didn't make any difference, as he was sentenced to life after deliberating for 2 hours. When the sentence was handed down, Adrian had an outburst and wrestled with deputies as they tried to escort him from the courtroom. Number 3. Michael Madison. Michael Madison had an abusive and chaotic childhood, but that wasn't enough to convince the jury not to sentence him to death for multiple counts of aggravated murder and kidnapping. Michael killed 3 people and wrapped their bodies in garbage bags. One of those victims was Sherelda Terry, whose father was giving a victim impact statement in the courtroom. When her father walked to the front of the courtroom to give his statement, he turned towards Michael, who was just a few feet away, and Michael smiled at him maliciously. That was enough for Sherelda's father to run at Michael, throw himself across the desk, and try to get at him. Sheriff's deputies swarmed at him while a woman could be heard screaming, "No, no, no!" in the background. A 15-minute delay followed, but the hearing continued. Michael received the death sentence, and the judge said life in prison wasn't an option based on the horrific nature of his crimes. Prosecutor Tim McGinty said the death penalty was for criminals like Michael, who are the worst of the worst. Michael didn't make any statements during his hearing, only to answer the judge's questions. Number 2. Kyandria Cook. Kyandria was 18 years old when she was sentenced to 20 years in state prison. She had used a dating app to set up a robbery that caused another teenager to be shot. Circuit Judge Matthew Foxman read out the sentence that included 20 years for a carjacking charge, 15 years for attempted carjacking with a deadly weapon, and 15 years for a battery felony. All 3 sentences were to be served concurrently. Kyandria's mother immediately started crying and wailing when the sentence was read out. She dropped to the floor in her seat and had to be consoled by those around her. Kyandria's mother's reaction was enough to make Kyandria cry, and she pleaded with the judge. All the commotion and noise made it necessary for the judge to restate his sentence before Kyandria was eventually led from the room, crying. According to online news sources, Kyandria and her boyfriend had lured Perry Nita to South Daytona so that they could buy cannabis and sleep with him. Nita had a 17-year-old with him, Emmanuel Purcell. Kyandria got into his car, got back out again to go get money, and her boyfriend, Kendrick Bass, got in the back seat wearing a mask. Emmanuel pushed Kendrick out of the car and Kendrick shot him in the stomach. Fortunately, he survived. 2 months after the 20-year sentence was given, Kyandria was able to withdraw her no contest plea and her initial sentence was changed. This was due to a miscommunication with her previous attorney. Later, she was given an 11-year prison sentence with 20 years of probation that would run with her prison term. Number 1. Franklin Williams. 32-year-old Franklin Williams was accused of 3 armed robberies in the Cuyahoga County Common Pleas Court. Franklin wouldn't stop talking during the sentencing hearing, even after Judge John Russo had given him several warnings over a half-hour period.
I'm the judge in the matter. Shut your mouth, and I'll tell you when you can talk. You got it?
But it wasn't just the judge he was talking over, he was also interrupting his own attorneys, which certainly didn't seem to be helping his case. The situation got so bad that the judge ordered for Franklin's mouth to be taped shut. So that is exactly what happened. He was made to sit down and red tape was put over his mouth to stop him from talking, although it didn't have the desired effect and he was still able to speak. This situation is bizarre, and the world thought so as well. When the video of this happening went viral, the Cleveland judge apologized and recused himself from the case. The judge said that as a judge and a lawyer, he had spent his career with the bench, public, bar associations, and community groups promoting confidence in the justice system. He said he was concerned that this particular hearing eroded some of that trust. The judge also said that, in retrospect, even though there is a legal precedent for gagging a defendant to maintain order in a courtroom, he apologized for taking that action.